This is the Working Writer Podcast, episode 55. It's time once again for the Working Writer Podcast. You want to write? We're here for you. In just a few moments, we're going to talk to our guest of the week, writer, producer, and director Peter Matsoukas. But first, I am your host, Brad Staggs, and that guy right there, yeah, that's Dave Bonnell, otherwise known as Producer Dave. How's it going this week?
It's not too bad. Got a little bit of rain here, which is odd for us, but it's been a nice little week in the Bay.
San Francisco rain. You never know what's going to happen. Right, let's take a second to talk about this week. I really want to, because I've had to write some over the past couple of weeks. I'm really wanting to talk about log lines because there's such a mystery to a lot of people that I've talked to as to what they are, how to write them effectively, and why you even need to. So do you do log lines for everything you're writing?
If I'm doing, usually I don't have a log line unless I'm doing a pitch to someone before it's written. So if, I guess, yes, but I put it down on paper as almost like a quick outline before the outline.
Yeah.
If I'm just like, okay, this is the gist of it, or if I'm trying to pitch it to someone and I need it to be a little bit more than an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Then yeah, that's really what I'll do it. And a lot of times I probably put it in like a PowerPoint type slide.
And that's a good point when you're talking about the elevator pitch, because I'm always asked, why do we even bother to have to do it? Well, the actual definition of a log line is it's a brief summary, 1 or 2 sentences at the most, of what is going on in your script and makes people want to read it and ask what's next in that script. Because when you've got an elevator pitch, if you haven't done an elevator pitch yet, it's a whole experience. You have to summarize everything in your script in 1 or 2 sentences. Because imagine going from the 5th floor down to the 1st floor, and that's how long you have to tell somebody what you're trying to sell them. So a log line is invaluable for that. If you've memorized your log line, when somebody says, hey, what you working on now? You can just throw that out there and make them interested in what you're actually doing. The question becomes, how do you make a log line? You've got this 200-page script, however long your script is. How do you get that down to 1 or 2 sentences? Well, just like everything else in writing, there is a formula. You don't have to stick to the formula, just like everything else in writing, but there is a formula.
Brad Staggs, the writing guy. Make that story fly.
And it is this: the inciting incident, plus the protagonist, plus an action, plus an antagonist. And that is your log line. I'll give you an example. I love this one. And I'm going to read you a few examples. And Dave, you'll see if you can guess what movies these log lines are to. Number 1, in order to catch a killer who skins his victims, a young FBI cadet must seek help from an incarcerated and manipulative killer.
Spy Kids.
That's very close. Very close. It was Spy Kids 2.
No, Silence of the Lambs.
No, of course, everybody knows that is Silence of the Lambs. But one complete sentence describes the entire movie and makes you want to watch what the hell that was. So, one of my favorites.
It's kind of like the back of a VHS.
Yeah, the back of the log line on the back of a VHS. A VHS, kids, is a thing that we used to have to watch things on long ago. Be Kind, Rewind.
Well, you didn't have reviews. You didn't have these internet shows to tell you what was good or wasn't any good. You actually turned the tape over and like, I mean, this guy who I have never heard of gave it 3 stars. So yeah, rock and roll. Let's watch this thing. Demon Wind can't be that bad.
No, not at all. Hey, this was filmed in Kokomo, Indiana. This must be absolutely wonderful, wonderful movie. So here's another one I love. During the Vietnam War, a young captain is sent on a dangerous mission into Cambodia to assassinate a renegade colonel who thinks of himself as a god. What do you think that is?
Well, it's Apocalypse Now.
That is Apocalypse Now. Either that or Back to the Future. I can never tell which. They're so interchangeable.
I drink his wine, so I'm very up to date on Coppola. His winery is actually not too. It's like a couple hours from here. I've been wanting to go for my birthday.
The Coppola wine. Everybody get a glass and raise your glass to Francis Ford Coppola. But what it comes down to with a log line is if you can form a log line so that people want to know more about that story, that you can sell them in 10 to 15 seconds. So make one for what you're writing. Tell us what it is. But in the meantime, hey, let's go over to our guest. Peter Matsoukas is a multi-hyphenate filmmaker with an excellent pedigree. He's originally from New York City. I won't hold that against you, but okay. Graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and earned his Master of Science in Digital Cinema from DePaul University in 2011. Began his career making short films and now creates award-winning, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said award-winning, full-length films as a writer, producer, and director. The Working Writer Podcast is happy to welcome another writer who seems to get very little sleep, Peter Matsoukas. Are you awake today, sir?
I am awake, caffeinated, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
The caffeinated part is the most important part of this whole process, I understand. So, I have a very important question for you, sir. The first question is always the most important I'm going to ask. So here we go. What makes you more nervous? Okay? Waiting to see how your latest film is received or coming up with a sold-out show on Wheel of Fortune? It's a question we all want to know the answer to.
Yes, both make me nervous. I would say I don't really care that much about how a film I've made is received once it's out. It's out and I'm excited for people to see it. I am sweating bullets if I'm watching it in a theater with people. But Wheel of Fortune was a very nerve-wracking experience. I thought I'd be a lot cooler under pressure, but it was tough. It was a lot to manage. The lights were glaring, and it was quite an experience. But at the end, I was mostly, the takeaway was I was just thrilled to have been a part of it. My kids were excited, and I was in awe of the production. Like what they're able to do on a Thursday, filming 6 shows, and Pat and Vanna were just such pros. So I was really just in awe of the whole experience and happy to be a part of it.
Of all the things that you've made, that was probably the first thing I've watched of yours. So I'm just going to say that.
Yes, that was good.
Now, I do love talking to filmmakers who've made the jump from film to digital, especially going back into the day.
Yeah.
You started out with 16 millimeter film, I understand. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, cut my teeth doing that in college.
16 millimeter film. What did you learn from doing 16 millimeter film that you have actually taken over with you into the digital age? Because there's so many things that do transfer and there are a lot of things that don't transfer. What's the most important thing that you carried with you from that?
By far the most important thing I learned was not from a technical perspective, but from a production perspective, a pre-production perspective. Mm-hmm. When you're shooting 16 millimeter film, it's so expensive. And oftentimes you're shooting 100 feet spools that are it costs $25 to buy, $25 to process. Luckily in undergrad, they would cover the processing costs. But 100 feet shot at 24 frames is about 2.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So you're burning a lot of money per foot of film shot. So you really have to make sure that camera is pointed in the right direction, you know where it's going, you're filming exactly what you need to film, and you're not wasting film, you're not burning film. When I encountered filmmakers who have grown up shooting digitally, oftentimes there's the thought that we will just shoot and shoot and shoot and figure it out in the edit, and then oftentimes you have films that are a mess because filmmakers haven't taken the time to really figure out what they wanted to do before they actually shot a foot of or a second of digital. And I'm not saying I storyboard everything. I don't, but I certainly shot list everything, and I know I have a mindset of what I want to do, and I think that's the most important thing. I'm not a cinematographer. I'm definitely more of a writer, producer, director. So I don't think about things in terms of color and achieving. I can obviously achieve a filmic look in post if I want, but it's all in the mentality: how to shoot, what to shoot, being expeditious, and as a producer, saving people's time, making our days, making our schedules. It's the only way to make low budget films the way I do. Is I have to be on point, a taskmaster, making our days, making doing everything with optimal efficiency. So that's what I learned, I think, from shooting 16.
Do you find yourself getting a little impatient when you get up to about the third take or so?
Uh, a little bit. I think I'm hopeful that I'm not sure the maximum takes I've, sometimes you have to get it right, and
Sure.
there are things that have to be done in terms of action and focus, and but in terms of performance, I really try to, and this is a part of it. I really try to rehearse a lot with the actors,
Hmm.
and I cast as good as I can. I cast the best that I can, who are serious and are really prepared. Um, my latest film, Fire Pit, which is in post now,
Hmm.
we shot 10 days feature film, and one actor in particular had four big scenes in one day, and all of his major scenes took place on one day, and we shot them all in succession. And I think he had to memorize and be ready to rock with maybe 12 to 15 pages.
Wow.
And we took our time. We got it all. At no time did we ever feel rushed. At no time did I ever feel like we were, you know, sweating bullets to try to get it done. But it was only because I gave him the best chance to succeed. I knew that he would be ready to go, as if we've taken this play on the road. Um, and because of that, we got it done. If we hadn't gotten it all one day, the whole thing could have spiraled. So uh, I, it is a fine line between trying to be efficient and trying to get what you need. It's a balance that hopefully I'm getting closer to achieving perfectly, but not there yet, but close. Or
When you're writing a piece like that, especially with long monologues, long exposition, as a writer, you're happy with what you're getting out on the page. Then, as the director, do you sit back and go, why in the hell did I just do that?
yes. Uh, there have been I've gotten into trouble with long dialogue-driven scenes,
Hmm.
and oftentimes I've cut them down. Hopefully, I see that in the rehearsals, and I know what can go. And oftentimes, there's quite a bit that can go. You don't want to be at a place where the scene is too long and it's boring, and you you have to find outs. You have to find ways to make it more concise. And there are ways, obviously, in the edit to do that. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I've had to wiggle out of some jams, but that's not where you want to be. And I certainly, that didn't happen on my latest film, which hopefully means I'm getting better at what I do. Uh, but I don't, and also I don't, it's not fun to edit those scenes either. It takes a
No.
ton of time, and um, I really feel like, a film that is cohesive and is really on point and telling the story in a very efficient way is hopefully not getting into those problems.
Now, as a writer, what actually drew you to the horror suspense genre, which you're in? As a writer, why do you love that?
I think it is rooted in my upbringing.
Hmm.
I grew up in New York City. Both my parents were criminal defense attorneys who
Wow.
never shied away from talking about their work at home. Maybe a bit paranoid, but maybe a bit overprotective. But I always saw dark and dangerous potential in the world. And not to say that I lived my life in fear, but I just, it was always there. And I always imagined uh, things popping out of the shadows. And I think once I got back after graduating and wanted to make films, I had this incredible cityscape that added a ton of inherent production value, being in the city making these low budget run and gun films. some features that aren't on my IMDb because they're not worthy, because there very few people have seen them, but they are features. So so I think that's what started, and then I really wasn't into horror per se until I started working for this filmmaker named Douglas Buck, and I became his assistant, and I got into a group of his friends who were all independent horror filmmakers, and I really had to bone up on a lot of horror films in order to be able to hang with that crew and talk shop. So I started watching and started really enjoying a lot of horror and understanding the complexities of the horror genre and what those films say about societies and times that they're made in. Um, and also, I think there's something about the limitation of horror and genre work that lends itself to low budget filmmaking. Sometimes when you're forced to work within limitations, you're often coming up with the most inventive ideas. And some of the scariest horror films are ones that are not big budgeted films. They're just about pacing and timing and some of the true tools of cinema. So I think it's those things that make you scared or make you feel suspense, or that's really getting to the roots of bare bones visual storytelling. So I think it all sort of came together for me to really embrace that. Not to say that I mean I love comedies. I love all films really, but I don't gravitate toward comedy in a way that I gravitate toward maybe the darker side of the screen.
Now, for the people who are listening who are trying to get that script out, that first script, especially in the horror slash suspense genre, do you write your scripts very tightly, very controlled, or do you especially if you're going to direct them, do you kind of let the actors get their own flow, or do you need that control in those?
I think it depends. I think that you want to, if you're making a film that you're writing, if you're directing it, I think it's important to trust actors, believe in what they can add to it, because I think good actors come to the table with good ideas about their character, but also about the dialogue. Um, I know a lot of writers are, they're married to their dialogue, and that's just the way it has to be. I'm not like that. I do have I do think about things when I'm writing them, and I do have inflections on certain things I see the character saying. But through an actor, that's when those things can change. And oftentimes, if dialogue doesn't fit with an actor or the way that actor says it organically, then it'll change. But I think my films are based in the world that we live in, even though they might be genre films, they're based somewhat in this world. I don't think I'm trying to create my own worlds through the dialogue, like say an Aaron Sorkin, which I'm actually teaching a bit on him right now for my course at Butler, where I teach, or Tarantino, where clearly the dialogue is unrealistic to how people exist and talk in the real world. I think my dialogue is not a driver of the world that I'm creating. So I'm not married to it. I just want the best possible film, and I want the actors to shine. Not to say I do want to write great lines, and I think that those things do come out, and I am proud of certain things that I've written. But I'm not going out of my way to carve out that territory in my writing.
Sure. It's already been carved out, and there can be a big difference out there. Now, when you are writing, you start out doing short films. When you're writing short films versus long form, full length films, what differences do you put in your writing between those two?
I don't think I've made many good short films. As a director, as
I
a writer,
disagree. I've seen a few of them. I disagree with that.
most of them are they're. I think that there is a structure to writing short films. I just don't think that I've adhered to those, and I don't think I've really been interested in that. It's oftentimes to the detriment of those films. I have a good case in point. I wrote a feature film that I tried to make the first part of that into a short film. And then my thought was that I would film that, and then on the strength of that short, I would then create the feature film. But when I tried to break down my feature into the short, it just didn't work.
Hmm.
Like and it was poorly conceived, poorly made. It was kind of a failure. Um, but so I think that the way that I make films and my sensibilities, I certainly take my time. So I think stretching it out to a feature length is sort of what I'd like to do. And once I started making features, I could never go back to shorts. But I think that when you start somewhere, you have to mess around. You have to write shorts. You have to get a sense for your dialogue.
Hmm.
Um, I think that everybody has to start writing short films. And I would say that when I talk to my students, I'm constantly trying to get them to keep things simple, to don't overwrite it, work off the visuals that you have at your disposal, and the production, again, the built-in production value, right around those things, and then try to carve out something that could be a viable short film within, a 10-minute or less short film. I just saw a short film yesterday that was 80 seconds long that was incredibly powerful. One shot, very short. I mean, that is probably a more viable short film than many of the ones that I've made that I've put a lot more time in. Um, so yeah, I don't really have many good answers about short filmmaking, but I
Hmm.
do know that it is something that people, many people just make short films or short documentaries and thrive and love that short form. And with people's shortened attention spans, that there is a market for that, and there are platforms that are going to promote that more so than they would have 20 years ago. But yeah, I think I don't know if I'm the best messenger for that.
Well, here's one I think you are because I love the way that your language comes through in your films. How do you, when you're writing, make sure that your characters sound as different on paper as you want them to in the film? How do you give them their own voice when you're writing?
Well, I think that it starts with what your aim is at the outset. Are you writing to convey a sense of realism, or are you trying to have a flourish and work with these characters and make them stand out? Oftentimes, we are encountering these characters in the most important times of their lives. Um, so there's an extreme situation there that, or a tension or a drama that these characters are in, which could elevate their urgency, they elevate their speech, um, take them out of the mundane. Um, Again, I'm trying to stay away from writing for the sake of writing great dialogue, but I feel like you have to try to carve out exchanges between characters that are unique and specific. Sometimes when two people are friends or are romantic or they have a connection, sometimes you watch a film and the writers are so they want to make it so clear what that is, and it's like, oh, to bring you in a sense. But oftentimes I find that if you keep it more personal to the characters and keep the audience at a distance, it'll make them lean in a little bit more to understand. So I think that's a thing. Like perhaps is that your goal, to try to bring everybody in? And that might be the difference between writing a nuanced independent film and writing something that you want to pitch and sell to Hollywood,
Hmm.
right? And I've been both places, trying to speculate on screenplays to try to sell to, to acquire an agent or try to sell to Hollywood, or something that I think is more nuanced and something that maybe I want to make or or try to get my friends to make so we can make it as an independent film. So I think it all starts with what you're thinking about at the outset. But at its core, or at my core, I want to make the writing nuanced. I want it to be propulsive. Um, uh, the best scripts, regardless of what that initial aim is, don't have many wasted words.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think about a film like Fargo, which is a film that I constantly go back to, and I think about the Coen brothers a lot. and that is a script with no wasted language, and everything makes sense. And as a writer director, that film it's not just the language that these characters are speaking, but the visual language. There's this perfect harmony between the words coming out of their mouths and the shots that the Coens are creating. And there's not a lot of flashy cinematography, but it's this perfect visual language that is propulsive while they're doing all these complex things within the script. So I'm not sure, I'm sort of ranting a roundabout way, but I think it's, again, about creating unique characters, propulsive storytelling, unique to me at the least.
Oh, hi. Hey, this is future Brad, or past Brad. I can't really keep that straight. Just interrupting you for just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Fiberglass Freaks Batman Museum. That's right, an actual museum dedicated to the 1966 Batman TV show. What could be better? It's right here in Logansport, Indiana, and it is an amazing place. Mark Rakup, who owns the place, is actually DC and Warner Brothers' only official builder of 1966 Batmobile replicas. Now, I'm not talking some little toy. I'm talking about a full-size working car. And you can go to the museum and see some of those right now. Plus all the toys from when you were a kid, everything dealing with Batman, especially the 1966 show. Go on in there, and if you go in there and tell them that the Working Writer Podcast sent you, you get $2 off your admission right now. So go in. You have no excuse not to go. So let's go back to the show. I'm sure it's more interesting than I am. So watch the podcast and then get to writing. Now, would you rather write something and give it to somebody else to direct, or do you really love the idea of writing something and directing yourself and having the follow through on your own?
I think film is a director's medium, and I think that when you direct a film, you're living with it for so long, and it becomes a part of you, and it becomes, it takes a chunk out of you, your heart, and your soul. But if you do it the right way, it's also replenishing to your soul, regardless of whether or not it's well received, if you're happy with it. So I think that I get great pleasure both ways. I think that the whole enchilada is when you write and direct a film, and it's yours. But at the same time, if you write something, or if you're a writer on a film that other people make, that is amazing too. I have so many screenplays that I would love for other people to just run with and just give me the writer's credit and or a credit, and I don't need any. I just want to see it made. I would be delighted if other people directed stuff that I wrote. But sometimes I write stuff. My film that I'm in post-production on right now, this film Fire Pit, which is premiering or hopefully to the festivals later this year, is a film that's very personal to me. And I would never write that for someone else because it really is something that's personal. And I think that it took me time. It's been on my docket for a long time, and I had to make other films before I could make this one. So it's been a lot of time and development. But I'm excited both ways, and it also feels really good to be able to write something that can help springboard an experience for another director, and hopefully make some money in the process too.
But speaking of writing credits,
Yes.
how different is it because you've produced many screenplays on your own, short films on your own, how different is it when you are brought in as a co-writer with something like the project with Jake Belinsky? How different? What is your mindset? How do you have to change that?
Well, there's two screenplays that have come out recently that I was a writer on that I didn't direct, and one was Compression that Jacob and Emily were co-producers with me on it. We really worked on it together, but it was Jake's film. Jake is an auteur, and once I kind of wrote the first act, and I said, "Well, take it from here. If some crazy stuff happens, you bring that to if you want to," and he did. If he didn't want to, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. But he really wrote a beautiful script and directed a great film. and I was a producer on it, so I feel like a real part of it. Another script that I worked on called Extraction USA, I wrote some passes on it, and I kind of got it up to a place where the director Mike Yance was excited to make it, and but other than that, I didn't do very much on it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I got writing credit for both. I'm happy. I want both films to succeed. I definitely have more skin in the game with Compression than I do Extraction, but I'm also happy to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm hopeful to write more, and I think that in the future, I'd love to be able to write scripts and just be able to write for other production companies. Like I'm working on a screenplay right now. That is another script that hopefully will be made by producers with hopefully a bigger budget, and I probably won't have much to do with the production of it. But that's not to say that with the same people down the line, perhaps they're producing a film that I've written and directed. So you just have to keep building these connections, these networks, and working on your craft and getting better. And I think that I am getting better. I've been doing it a long time, slowly, surely, improving, learning.
With a film like Compression being only one of the writers on it, do you like to be on set during filming, or would you rather not be there?
Again, it's really because I'm a director at heart. So I really don't feel like if I'm not directing the film, then I could be there, or if they want me to write more, I can, but I don't have to do anything. I'm excited to be there, and I've written some shorts that have been produced, and I've been on set. It's been, I'm the writer, haha, I'm mostly hanging out and just chatting with people and eating, craft service. I don't feel any, I'm not like, that's not the way that I wrote it. That's certainly not, it's not mine. But once I've signed off on it, I want it to do well. But if it doesn't, you know what, that's, and if it's changed, I think that if I really cared enough about it, I wouldn't give it up. But that being said, I'm giving it up to people who are excited and good filmmakers and people I like, presumably. So, and if I didn't like them or didn't know them, then I probably wouldn't go on set, but that's okay. I mean, I just hope the film would turn out well. And if it doesn't, well, we'll see how that goes. There are always pseudonyms, I guess, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
Oh, you'll end up in Hollywood in some mansion and nobody will know who you are.
That could be fine.
Now, you're teaching at Butler now.
Yes.
What's the course you're teaching?
Yeah, well, academia has been a great thing for me because I've been able to, I'm now a full-time professor after years of being an adjunct. So I teach.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I teach 4 courses a semester, and the nature of that is I'm still able to work on my own projects. I clearly have a lot of projects happening, which is great. And I don't have to focus on things I don't want to focus on. Like I used to shoot a lot of freelance content or shoot stuff in marketing departments working for other employers, and that was what paid the bills. Now I can teach, I can share my love of cinema, and I'm teaching an authorship course. I taught a genre course last semester. I'm teaching some other production courses. So it's mostly film production, film media production, and some theory. And I have great coworkers who are also filmmakers. So I feel like I'm learning a lot, and mostly I'm excited to just be around young people who constantly give me faith in the future. And we talk about films that we've watched, so it keeps me in the know. It keeps me watching films. So it's been great, and it also makes me a bit more camera ready when it comes to doing podcasts. But I wish I had this confidence and success on Wheel of Fortune, but no.
Well, here in a second, we're going to spin the wheel and see if you can win a ceramic dog. So we'll see what happens. Now, as you're teaching in Butler, you've got new students coming in every semester. What's the thing about them that you love about having the young people? Besides, okay, they're introducing you to some new things, But are they still coming in with that enthusiasm of really wanting to make their own product?
I think many of them are figuring it out, and I think you get a sense after a few weeks who really is serious about that. I know when I was an undergraduate, it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily want to be a filmmaker, and I fell in love with film. But you get a sense of who is really serious, who is going the extra mile, who is like really living and dying with the projects they make, and who is just mailing it in. Uh, but watching films, like, I assign a lot of films that people have to watch. And watching those films with people who haven't seen them, who haven't heard of them, for the first time, is really an amazing thing. When you watch, I mean, I get this with my kids too. When you watch something that you love and sharing that with someone who hasn't seen it, it's like watching it for the first time with fresh eyes. And so that's really part of the joy. And I really feel like I cared a lot about the film professors who I had in undergrad. So this is a continuum that I'm passing on. And as cinema is, constantly in a state of flux and changing, and with streaming and whatnot, and corporate mergers and whatnot, I really feel like sticking to the basics of what's important, of pure filmmaking, and sort of teaching that, and the same principles that I mentioned before about making 16 millimeter films, right? It all starts from that same place. And back then we were watching my professor's 35 millimeter prints that he owned, in in film class. So things obviously changed. It's been quite a while since I was in college, but in an ever-changing life and world, I really feel like this is taking it back to the 20th century with many of
Yeah.
the films that we're screening, is a great way for me to give back, and it's joy. Like, it's a lot of just fun being with these students.
But that's a good point. You got your digital cinema degree in 2011. Things have changed a lot in the intervening years.
Yes.
What's the one thing that you learned in 2011 that you thought, oh, this is going to be forever? This is going to be something that lasts forever, and maybe it didn't last but a couple of years. And then we changed to something else.
So when I went to grad school, there was a fair amount of time between when I graduated from undergrad and grad school. So I felt old in grad school in a way, but that was okay because I felt like I was mature and ready for it. So things had obviously changed a lot since, from undergrad to grad, but a lot of the people in grad school were ahead of me in terms of digital technology and shooting DSLRs. And, I was pretty proficient in Final Cut Pro, but things had moved to Premiere, and I was a good editor and, decent shooter, I suppose. But I think at the time I was really into the idea of like red cameras. They were really, 4K red cameras. Oh, this is going to change the game, and you'll be able to shoot something and crop it in post and be able to, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And then I shot my film No Place, with the red camera, and I found that it was just a burden, and all this equipment, and being unable to move the camera like I wanted to. And I really felt like that was something that brought my filmmaking down in a way. Like, wasn't exploring, I wasn't doing everything I was able to do. So when I made Beelines, I really, after creating something with a bigger camera, bigger crew, more robust, and more sort of in alignment with what I thought this new digital age meant to me, especially when Steven Soderbergh started making films on the red, and then I really scaled it back. And obviously technology caught up with us a little bit. They started making cameras that were as good, with better sensors and, equal sort of dynamic range, that were smaller, cheaper, you could move with and be more mobile. So Beelines is certainly, and which was shot by Jacob Polinsky, who directed Compression, is a lot more freewheeling and more of this vibrant cinema that I liked, at least that fit for that film. So I felt like, and just with that film, Beelines, it was a lot more stylistically. It was closer to the stuff I was making that was extremely low budget in New York, way before DV got to the place where it was at its peak, or where it is. Um, I think that there are a lot of films out there shot digitally that just don't look good.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like, I'm always trying to bring back the contrast, to make things look more filmic. Um, I certainly would never shoot film again. I feel like that's a luxury for uh, the great filmmakers of the age. But I feel like finding the right balance. And again, not to keep harping on this, but I think that a lot of my friends and peers in grad school didn't grow up with a lot of the 16 millimeter sort of efficiency
Right.
lessons I learned. So again, a lot of people were just shooting and shooting and shooting, not understanding the why. It was all about the how. So I think learning why you're doing something is as important as how or the technology.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. And the film you just mentioned, of course, is available on Tubi. I just
yeah.
made sure because that's where I watched it this morning
Yes.
and loved it. Had a great time with it. I think that it's something that people should go out and watch. If you could have your druthers, what's one class you would like to create and teach at Butler? What kind of class would you like to create and teach?
Well, I've taught directing
Mhm.
at other institutions. I'd like to teach directing because I think that's where I'm at my where I think I have the most insight, because I,
Mhm.
I am a director and I'm certainly a filmmaker more so than I am an academic. So I feel like um, the teaching a lot of theory-based courses is incredible for me to learn. Uh, and I know a lot of this stuff obviously because I've watched a lot of movies and studied and analyzed films for my whole life. But directing is something that a lot of it is experience that it's a lot of it is about mentality,
Mhm.
um, and approach, and belief in what you're doing. So um, I think I have a good insight into that, and I was really delighted that three of my directing students worked as PAs on Fire Pit, and
Nice.
were so invaluable to the production and smart. And now they're making their films and graduating and making their thesis films. And I keep telling them, please send me scripts. I'd love to produce for you. Like let's work it out. Like because I see such talent in some of these great young filmmakers, and
Mhm.
I see them as being where I was and hoping that I could be a mentor to them that I wished I had. Um, I don't know if I had the talent that they did, but I certainly want to be able to help these filmmakers, and that's part of me being a producer as well, like understanding and that I can help to create and nurture a filmmakers. I really feel like that's a big part of producing as well, trying to help a director, being a shoulder to cry on, obviously scheduling and budgeting and everything that goes into the being the liaison between the film world and the real world. But as a director, I feel like I understand what a director is going through.
Sure. If you could give one piece of advice to the young screenwriters who are out there trying to get that first screenplay done, trying to get it out there, what would that advice be?
My advice would be to write. You have to write. You have to have the discipline to write. And I think that if you're a writer, you have to write every day. You have to work on that every day. And if that means getting up earlier than you want to, eventually it won't be, you will want to because it's a part of your routine. But finding an hour, 2 hours, whether it's in the morning or at night, whenever you do it to write, that's first and foremost. The discipline is what so many writers lack, um, because I think once you keep writing and you get better. I think that you have to be an engaged film viewer, an audience member, and understand what you like in films and TV. And TV is a whole other thing. I don't really, that's not really my bag, but I certainly appreciate TV. I just try to watch a lot of films. The scope of creating something for 10 episodes or 20 episodes, or that's beyond my scale. But I would say that be an audience member and understand what you like. And I think that once you understand what you like, then you can figure out what you gravitate towards, and then start writing that way. I think you have to do all the things that writers do. You have to try to get an agent. You have to submit to festivals. You have to, but I think that without writing, you have to, once you get to that point where you have that opportunity, you have to be able to have the goods. And it's so interesting when you see these filmmakers or these screenwriters who break into the scene and actually break through. They constantly have other scripts produced. So oftentimes it's like there's the big one, but then you have a few of the other ones that come through as well, that you may have written before, that are now viable after years and years and years not being viable because, well, your name's attached to it and you're someone who could actually get something made because of the strength of your writing. I also think that we constantly get better as writers over time. So oftentimes you have to put things down and go back to it. If you put something down and say you write a script and it's a feature and you're not getting any traction, write something else and then go back to it. Whether it's a year later, 6 months, you will look on it with fresh eyes. You will see things that are new and different, or things that you may change or may evolve with you. And the last thing I would say is definitely give it to people who can give you honest advice and critique. We all have to develop thick skin. We can't be afraid to fail. I can't tell you how many times I failed. I can't tell you the ratio between my failures and successes. I don't know if I could tabulate that, but I've certainly developed a thick skin, and I don't fear failure. I don't. It doesn't bother me when people don't like what I do. And if my projects are not going to get into festivals or wherever, you know what? I'm going to keep plugging away because in my heart, I know I have faith in my talents, and I just have to do it. If I don't do it, then I would, I would cease to be the person who I am, and I don't know where I'd be, but I wouldn't be happy. So you have to, if you love it and it's a part of you, whether it's writing or making films, you have to find a way to do it.
Professor Matsoukas, and I love saying that, it has been a pleasure to have you on. Tell the folks real quick where they can find you online.
Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure being on this. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. My website is rockscarfilms.com, ROCKSCAR films.com, which is my production company, and you can link to all my work there. No Place, Beelines are films that I wrote and directed that are streaming on Tubi. Mm-hmm. Get them for free with some commercials. Compression, a film that I co-wrote, produced, that's directed by Jacob Belinsky, that's starting to stream as well. And a few other films that I made are starting to make the festival circuit. The Bright, Beautiful World, The Infectious Joy of Pat McCurdy is a documentary about the hardest working man in Wisconsin show business, Pat McCurdy, premiering at the Milwaukee Film Festival, and then hopefully taking over the world and curing our world in the months and years to come. And then Fire Pit is a film that I'm very proud of that's in post that will hopefully start the festival circuit in the fall.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on today. I look forward. I've already seen Beelines. See that? Got the title. And I've seen the trailer for Compression, so that's my next watch, and I can't wait to see it. Thank you again so much for being on and for all your valuable advice. It's fascinating to me to get people's different perspectives on where they started and where they are now, especially people who've gone from film to digital, like Peter has. Now, have you ever worked on film, Dave?
I have not. I mean, yes and no. Like, we're talking like 16 millimeter, even one, I think it was 8 on one, but it was like a small segment of a film.
Oh,
we
yeah,
did not
yeah.
shout the entire thing because
They wanted it to
we-
look
we
like that
barely
old
had-
8. Yeah.
we didn't have the money for the SD card, let alone the film. And had we had the money for the film, nobody would have known what to do with it. They're like, I have tried to put this in Adobe all day, and it just won't. There's no slot for it in my computer.
The 8 and 16 millimeter film slot on your USB drive, I think.
Yeah, I don't have that adapter. I think they're sold out.
I think it's called a scanner. You have to put it in one frame at a time.
That is true.
But it's definitely different because you've seen the 8 mil that I worked on back in 91.
All sensors are
It's a whole different beast.
It really is. I actually would like to talk to him more about his days in New York and then coming to Indiana, because of someone who went from Indiana to New York.
Yeah.
I would love to have just a conversation about him, because I almost feel he's going to feel the same way about that I feel, that I prefer to work with Midwest filmmakers instead of New York filmmakers. And that's my hot take, because I've just found that they just feel more creative, or they feel
Right.
like they're doing it because they have a passion for it. to
Right.
where
We really,
people in New York feel,
when we get into a project, we want to be there. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think the people in New York, they're sometimes a little bit younger people that don't
Yeah.
know what to do with their life, and it's their first stint of, this is their I want to be a cowboy phase of their life, and so it's not really what a lot of them are going to end up doing. It's just like they're young and they're like, I want this opportunity, I'm going to do it, I'm going to move to New York, become a filmmaker, and then they get into it and realize they're like, I don't really like this. I like watching movies and telling stories, and maybe I want to be a kindergarten teacher.
so stay tuned. Part 2 of this interview will be how to come from New York to Indiana to make your fortune.
Perfect.
Just saying.
There's gold in them. I would say hills, but there's no hills. There's no gold in those hills.
There's gold in those valleys.
There's corn and there's corn in those fields.
There's more than corn in Indiana, really. Oops,
So they
that's
say.
probably copyrighted.
It is by the good people that reside on Lake Schaefer.
That's right. Lake Schaefer, Indiana. We will take your sponsorship. Just saying. Hey, many thanks to Peter Matsoukas for his time today. As you're listening to this, watching us, remember to take the time and do your own writing. At the same time, there's no excuses anymore. But you can write to us at workingwriterpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you're working on, what you're doing at this point in time, and wherever you're watching or listening to this, give us a review. Let us know what you think, okay? Follow us on all our social medias. We got the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, all the things that young people get to besides Facebook. But we're there, so what the heck. But until next week, make the most of your time and keep writing. Remember, writing is more than just a job, it's a passion. Pay your bills, but follow your passion. So until next time, get to writing.